Thank you for joining us for another Tuesday episode. Today I have Cincinnati Life. We're going to be going over some guaranteed whole life insurance plus their critical illness rider. This is a very popular rider that everyone's been calling up and asking for. And it's very nice to actually have it on a whole life option for your clients to get those guaranteed death benefits, the guaranteed premiums, the guaranteed cash value that's in the policy. On the phone with me today, I have Josh Peterson. He is their life field director. Hey, Josh, how you doing today?
Good, Kathy. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. I'm so happy that you're here to go over the details of your guaranteed whole life. I'm just going to let you go ahead and take it away from here, okay?
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you. And again, thank you to Premier for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about the whole life product, some sales ideas you can have with it, and in combination with our chronic illness rider. There's some really strong things that can go in here. The whole life, is kind of been left behind a little bit in the days of indexed and variable and everything going on. But our whole life contract is still a very, very strong contract, very simple to understand, purely guaranteed because that's Cincinnati Life. We're here for death benefit protection and guarantees, and so our whole life product really does fit the mold for a lot of clients out there. So first off, I'm going to explain a little bit about kind of the illustration that I have here with our whole life product. For this example, I'm using a 60-year-old female standard plus, and I did put the chronic illness rider on there. And I'll get to that in the second part of this, and kind of where it lays down. But what's really interesting is when you get into kind of what our contract looks like for the whole life, there's a reason it's called the guaranteed whole life. So we have 3 guarantees that sit in this. Unfortunately, no guaranteed issue underwriting is not one of them, but we do have guaranteed premiums, guaranteed cash value, guaranteed death benefit. So those are the 3 guarantees in there. I'd say the number one question I always get when we talk about whole life is, well, what's your guys' rate? What's your interest rate that you're paying on it? And honestly, there isn't one. This is a stated value policy. What the number says inside of your cash value, it is guaranteed to happen. Now you can run the math if you want to get really bored and see it's usually somewhere around 3%, but it will vary. Some years, sometimes it's 2 to 3% or 2.8, 2.9, 3.3, 3.4, things of that nature. Again, we want it more simplistic. We don't want to have one of those out there of, hey, what's the interest rate and try to battle that way. For us, what the piece of paper says is what you're going to get. And that gives a lot of peace of mind to the clients. So you can kind of take a look onto this where we're seeing the 10,000. We're doing 410,000 of death benefit on this permanent product. And I'll explain that here in a minute too when we get into the chronic illness part of it. But then you see 10,366 a year, what your premium outlays are, your cash value as that grows, what your death benefit as stays the same. What's also really nice about the whole life products that we have is our secondary options, right? If somebody wants to walk away, what can they get? Well, you can get your cash value. You can surrender that out. We also have a paid up option that sits in there. So in 10 years, like, nah, we're done with this. Can't afford it. We don't want to do it anymore. Whatever it may be, you've got some options. You could stop paying in 10 years, and you would now have paid up insurance for the rest of your life of $157,850. And that's kind of what you see there. Our other option, which a lot of people miss in it, and it's still a really good one, is, well, we have extended term. So you could keep this 410,000 for the next 13 years and 72 days. So a lot of options inside of that whole life contract, a lot of things that have kind of gone by the wayside, but what always made, whole life really, really strong. As we get into talking about the chronic illness rider and why it is so strong on this, the first thing I'm going to show you guys is how much it actually costs. So in the illustration, you'll note, our base policy is $9,742. The cost for this rider is $623 a year. Very little amount of money if you think about, the long-term care world of how much a long-term care policy could cost of something like this structure. Very, very expensive. And then you still have kind of the pitfalls of all long-term care. Number one, you buy it and you never use it, and you lose everything that's inside of there. Another pitfall is walking away, and we just explained kind of what our whole life has. If you want to walk away, the options that sit in there. Lastly, number 3 is premium increases. They go up. They might be locked in for 1, 2, 3 years, maybe 5, but we all know if anybody's done anything with long-term care, those prices go up and up and up, and you have to decide, do I want to pay more premium, or do I want to reduce my benefits that I've been paying for this whole time? And like I said, that's kind of handled by our 3 guarantees. You know, we have guaranteed premiums. Those will never change no matter what. And we have those exit strategies. And ultimately, if you end up passing away before ever using it for long-term care, you've got a death benefit sitting there of $410,000. So we're using a product like this, we are definitely able to stay outside of or deal with a lot of the problems of long-term care insurance that sits out there. And that's why these linked benefit style programs really work. Next, I want to show just a little bit kind of about how our chronic illness rider does work and how it sits on here. Again, you know, we talked about, we're going to be talking about it on the guaranteed whole life, issue ages 15 days to 70 years old. It can also be put onto our heritage, which is our current assumption UL. I would not recommend it for a couple reasons. Number 1, that is not a fully guaranteed product, so I can't promise you that it will always be in force. And if it's not in force, the insurance and the long-term care part doesn't really matter. Secondly, it also is the cheapest way to put it on the whole life because we do hold back a minimum for the policy. So we need to keep that policy in force. The minimum for our whole life is a $10,000 policy. So we're going to keep that off. Also kind of keep in mind, you have to have at least $100,000 of benefit to be able to put the chronic illness rider on there. If you see kind of by the definitions here, what are our things? We can do up the annual advance is limited to the lesser of 25% of the death benefit or the IRS per diem limit. Here it was for $380 as of 2020. I believe 2026, the number is $430 a day. That turns out to about $13,000 a month. You know, extrapolate that out and you can kind of see where you're at. A couple of examples of how this works. You know, number 1, this one uses a $500,000 death benefit as an example. We're going to keep $10,000 off. That's why you see the $490. 25% of that, $490 is $122,500. That's how much they can take up for the year. The nice thing about our product is once you choose that, you can pick a new one next year. You don't have to start out with a 2% or a 3% or a 4% that's going to do it every single year. Each year you can pick how much you need. If you don't need 122,000, again, that's getting pretty close up there to the IRS per diem limit. It just means it lasts longer. You got that pool of money that sits there even longer. When you do take that out, our new policy will reduce. You'll have $377,500, and the premiums, the cash value, everything will reduce down as it needs to be able to get into that. The other question we get, what are the triggers? Kind of how it works. Number 1, you have to be diagnosed by a health practitioner within the past 12 months. 2 of 6 ADLs right here. And they have to be permanent. And that is kind of the one differential that sits on our chronic illness rider. We really don't want this as a disability plan. It really is for chronic illness, and that is how we set it up. Also, if you're terminally ill, expected to pass in the next 24 months, that'll do it as well. So just a little bit of quick information there on the chronic illness rider, how it works, how it's triggered, the benefits that sit in there. Again, being able to add this onto a whole life policy for that cheap is a great play to do it. Now we'll go into this kind of real life example here and how it would work. So again, we designed here a $410,000 benefit. So if we do need long-term care, this person has 2 of 6 ADLs. It is the reason for it is going to be a permanent condition. You're going to have access to up to $100,000 a year for your long-term care. Now, say you start out in the home and it only costs you $30,000 that first year. That's all you have to pull out the first year. Now you still have $370,000 left. The next year you can still pull out that same maximum of 100. So just because that face amount reduced down because of what you pulled out, you still get to take out what the initial starting point was. So maybe now in year 2, we had to go into shared care, and it's more of maybe it's a $70,000 bill. Take that out. Now we've got 300,000 left. Year 3, we're still in there, and we are in full care now, and we need the full $100,000 to take out. You can do that, and you can do it for the next year. And then if they pass away, you've only pulled out 300,000. We're still going to have right around $100,000 left of death benefit, actually 110, figuratively to what goes in there. So that's really how the plan works. Again, it's not only is the whole life on itself as a base contract incredibly strong, but adding that chronic illness rider onto it, or if you work in the linked benefit worlds, again, here's one that we did really as an annual pay. You can structure these as a 10 pay. You can structure them as a single pay, kind of that lazy money type of idea, CD rolling, whatever it may be, to really work into that linked benefit world. The last thing I want to touch on with our whole life product and what else it gets used for is also final expense. We have a minimum of $10,000, as we said. So here's an example of with that same client, maybe long-term care isn't something they need, or they've already got it bought, but they don't have any final expense. And that's a big thing out there, especially around the Medicare clients, everybody that's in there. Maybe they're 60 and this is actually an age 65 client. They've now left work. They don't have any insurance anymore. Their term has expired of what they've had and just have never earmarked anything for those final expenses. Here's a good way to do it. Now, ours is fully going to be underwritten. So number one, that's going to mean you're going to get a cheaper rate. Yeah, there are simplified issue, there are guaranteed issue final expense plans out there that might be a little bit easier to go with. But if you do have a relatively healthy client, and this one we rated at standard because we are under 100,000 a face, but we're still sitting here at under $1,000 a year for this $20,000 of whole life. Same rules apply though. It is a guaranteed premium, guaranteed cash value, guaranteed death benefit, and we still have those same secondary options if they, for some reason, need to stop. You can take a paid up policy, you can take extended term for the full 20,000, whatever you want to do there. But a very, very cheap option if you get in there and start kind of looking around as to what it could compare to some other ones. Monthly, this thing breaks down to about $80 a month. So another way that you could really use our whole life, we see it again, final expense. We see it being used as a linked benefit style plan. We see it being used just for solid permanent protection for people that don't want to understand or are kind of away from the indexed or the variable world. They want a little bit more benefit. Comparing it against GULs, our premiums are so low that it's very, very competitive, plus getting the bonus of some cash or some exit benefits here if they want to stop paying it early. It is non-participating, so we don't pay dividends because those aren't guaranteed. This is a fully guaranteed product, what sits out there. So a lot of really good ways to be able to use this whole life product that we've seen kind of really making a resurgence over the last few years. So that's really about all I have on our whole life product. Kathy, if there's anything else you want to chime in with or any questions?
I think you did a really good job going over everything that you're showing here. Everything that he talked about today, the guaranteed part of this policy, and that's what a lot of people call in. They want to make sure they have guarantees. Not guaranteed underwriting is, you're not going to get your standard if you got some major health issues. The guaranteed part, that having that death benefit be there when you need it, having the premiums not change. If you add the rider, it's going to be guaranteed to be there and support your clients as needed. So this is a very strong product, very great company to be working with. Joshua, thank you so much for doing this. I very, very much appreciate this. If anyone needs additional support, quotes, contracting, please get a hold of your life team here at Premier, 800-365-8208, and the team extension is 607. Josh, if they want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So you can always shoot me an email. And my email is Josh, Josh_Peterson, PETERSEN @ CINFIN, CINFIN.com. You can also feel free to reach out to me directly. My phone number is 319-269-6174. More than happy to discuss any questions you may have or anything marketing wise, whatever you're looking for. Definitely here to help out.
Thank you for that. One last comment here. We do get a lot of calls. Agents are asking us why they can't run on our agent portal anything with whole life. There's so many moving parts to a whole life option that that's just something that's not available. So we run it on the carrier site. That way, if you need any help with these quotes, please feel free to reach out to one of us. So everybody take care. Have a great day. Thank you, Joshua, for being on the phone with us today. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you, Premier, for the opportunity.
Yep. Take care. Have a great day, everybody.